It was the first time in 5 years I wasn't asked to bring a cake, but I brought one anyway. The buttercream hadn't set quite right on the top tier, but I told myself Leo wouldn't notice. He was turning 5, obsessed with dinosaurs, and had been very clear that he wanted an ankylosaurus, not a T-Rex, not a velociraptor, the one with the armor and the big tail he'd said tapping his plastic figurine against my kitchen table. So I made it. 2 tiers pale green, frosting a ridge of piped rosettes I practiced for 3 weeks to get right. I'd researched each dinosaur on the sides, not just shapes, but colors and size scale. The little one crouched near the lava flow was a Troodon. I thought he'd like that detail. The drive across town was quiet. My hands kept checking the back seat at every red light, making sure the cake box hadn't tipped. It was almost spring in Boulder, but the sun felt closer this year. I worried the frosting would melt, or worse, that the cake would be dismissed before anyone tasted it. When Camille opened the door, her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, you actually brought it? That's sweet." I blinked. "Yes. I thought I'd set it on the island before the kids get too wild." She stepped aside. "Sure, go ahead." Her kitchen was spotless stainless steel and quartz, like it had never been cooked in. There on the counter was a white bakery box with gold script that read, Jardin Pâtisserie. Expensive. She'd mentioned the place, once said they specialized in custom fondant work. I set my cake down beside it and stared at the lettering, feeling foolish. Andrew came in with a stack of folding chairs. "Hey, Mom," he said, kissing my cheek quickly. "That looks amazing. Mel just ordered a backup, just in case anything you know." He trailed off. Just in case mine wasn't good enough, I finished softly. No, that's not what it's fine. 2 cakes are better than 1, right?" He nodded, relieved. I hadn't made a scene. As if I ever did. The party unfolded with Pinterest-level precision. Coordinated dinosaur-themed banners, face-painting even a foam pit labeled Fossil Dig. Camille moved through it all like a director hair-flawless linen jumpsuit, crisp wine glass never empty. I stood by the lemonade table wiping up condensation invisible in a room I used to belong to. When it was time for the cake, the guests gathered inside. The bakery cake was already on a stand, perfectly centered. My cake sat off to the side next to the fruit tray and cupcakes. Leo was lifted onto a chair. He scanned the table and asked, "Where's Grandma's cake? The one with the ankylosaurus?" The room went still. Camille smiled tight. "We're using this one for photos, honey. Grandma's cake is for later." Leo frowned. "But I want the one Grandma made." Andrew shifted uncomfortably. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out, so I just smiled and swallowed hard. I stayed by the drink table as they sang. Camille led the chorus with bright performative energy, waving a sparkler as Leo blew out the candles on her cake. My cake remained untouched, the little fondant ankylosaurus looking almost confused under the kitchen lights. The guests clapped. Phones flashed. Camille repositioned Leo for better angles, while Andrew fumbled with the lighter. I poured lemonade. The pitcher had started to sweat through the tablecloth. When it was over, I tried to cut a few slices of my cake for the kids. Camille saw me from across the room and glided over. "Oh, Evelyn," she said with a light laugh. "Let's keep the dessert table looking clean for now. The photographer hasn't taken the shots yet." I looked down at the knife in my hand. "Of course." She turned without waiting for a reply. I stepped back. The backyard buzzed with laughter. Parents in linen and gold-rimmed sunglasses gathered in curated clusters. Camille's mother, Francine, was by the gift table giving a small speech about how Leo would absolutely adore the train set from their European trip. Her voice carried. Camille's father, Dr. Prescott, recounted his days in orthopedic surgery to a pair of dads near the grill. No one spoke to me. No one asked who made the lemonade, or the cake, or where Leo got his obsession with dinosaurs. That had been me 2 years ago with a National Geographic and a rainy afternoon and a cardboard volcano on my apartment floor. I had nowhere to sit. All the seats were taken by people more polished, more relevant, more curated. I wandered inside to grab my cardigan and caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. The pink floral blouse I'd ironed twice that morning now clung damply to my back. My makeup had softened in the heat lips, slightly faded mascara. Thinner than I'd hoped. I looked like someone who had been invited but not included. When I returned to the kitchen, Leo was there licking frosting off his fingers. His face lit up when he saw me. "Grandma," he said, running over. "Did you see the fossil table I found a dino claw?" I knelt, ignoring the twinge in my knees. "Did you now?" "You'll have to show me." He hugged me hard. "And your cake is better. It has the right dinosaurs." I smiled into his hair. "Thank you, sweetheart." It lasted 3 seconds. Then Camille called Leo honey. "Come say thank you to Mrs. Holloway for the gift," he pulled away and ran. I stood alone in the kitchen. Again. The next morning, my knees ached worse than usual. I had stood for most of the party, never once offered a chair. I told myself it didn't matter, that the important thing was Leo's smile, not where I sat or whose cake got cut. But the lie clung to me like the humidity had yesterday, stubborn and uncomfortable. Just after noon, my phone rang. Andrew. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice sounding careful. "You get home okay last night?" "I did." "Thank you." He hesitated. "Tyler loved the cake. He really did. I know things got a little tense with Mel." "It's all right," I said. "I'm used to being behind the scenes." "That's not how we see you," he replied quickly. "Actually, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about." Something in his tone made me sit down. Camille was thinking, he continued, that it might be helpful if she had a little more flexibility when it comes to Leo's expenses. Like for school activities, summer programs, supplies, things like that. I already knew where this was going. I thought maybe he went on, "You could add her as an authorized user on one of your credit cards, just for things Leo needs." I stared at the picture frame on my shelf. Leo's preschool photo. He was wearing the blue shirt I bought him for his birthday last year. The one Camille said wasn't really his color. "I suppose that could work," I said slowly, "as long as it's just for Leo's needs." "Of course," Andrew said. "Camille's just trying to be efficient. You know how she is. She likes things streamlined." I knew exactly how she was. After we hung up, I sat for a long time, fingers resting on the phone. I could already feel the edges of the boundary blurring, but I told myself it wasn't about money. It was about connection, access, relevance. I still had something to offer, something they needed. So later that afternoon, I called the bank and authorized the process. A second card would be issued with Camille's name. Same limit, same responsibility. Mine. When the representative asked if I wanted to set a spending cap for the new user, I paused. Setting a limit might suggest I didn't trust them. "No," I said quietly. "That won't be necessary." The woman on the phone confirmed the changes. The call ended with cheerful efficiency. I set the receiver down gently, as if it were made of glass. Then I turned and looked at the picture of Leo again. It still felt like the right thing. At the time. The first credit card statement arrived on a Thursday. I almost didn't open it. I'd grown used to predictable balances, grocery runs, the occasional gas fill-up, the $11.99 for my genealogy app. Nothing I couldn't account for in a single glance. But this envelope felt heavier. I slit it open with the butter knife and pulled out the pages, smoothing them on the table. Total balance 2863.11. I blinked. The charges ran down the page like a list of someone else's life. Lululemon 247.90, Drybar 96.0, The Little Loft Montessori 1800 easier, Nordstrom 389.60, Skin by Marla 210.0, Amazon Book Boundary Boss 1679. The school charge I expected. The rest, not so much. I picked up the phone but didn't dial. I reread the charges again and again. I didn't want to overreact. Maybe Camille had been busy and bought a few things on the go. Maybe she meant to reimburse me. Maybe. A lot of maybes. That night, I cooked a small pot of stew, the kind Andrew liked as a boy. It simmered as the windows darkened. I didn't eat. The next day, Camille sent me a photo of Leo dressed as a tiny geologist for Discovery Day. Didn't he turn out perfect? She wrote. Below was a second message. Oh, by the way, the Montessori fee came out of the card. Hope that's okay. We were in a rush. There was no mention of Nordstrom or Drybar. I replied simply, thanks for the update. Let's discuss soon. That night, I emailed Andrew a copy of the statement with a polite note. I'd like to clarify some boundaries before the next cycle. I'm happy to support Leo's schooling, but the personal purchases, those need a conversation. He didn't reply until 3 days later. I understand. I'll talk to Camille. We appreciate your support truly. But nothing changed. The second statement was worse. Over $4,000. A trip to an upscale baby boutique. A brunch for 6 at a rooftop bistro. 2 tickets to a silent auction. I was never invited to attend. I finally called Andrew. He answered on the third ring, distracted. Mom, I meant to get back to you. We've just been slammed. Leo's soccer started. Camille's work is nuts. I just want to be sure we're still aligned, I said. Because this isn't what I agreed to. He sighed. Camille says it's all for Leo in the end. The experiences, the exposure. You know how she is. She's just trying to build a good life for him. I was silent. Then I said, there's more than one way to build a life. And some of us don't use other people's wallets. He didn't laugh. Neither did I. It was a Sunday afternoon when she said it. I was sitting on the edge of Camille's white leather sectional, holding a glass of lukewarm chamomile tea. Leo was in the backyard with a foam rocket shrieking with joy each time it launched sideways. I'd come by to drop off a puzzle I'd found at a thrift store, Dinosaurs again, but Camille had insisted I stay for tea. She wore a slate gray wrap dress that looked like it had cost more than my monthly pension. Her nails were new, French tips, subtle but intentional. So she began smoothing the hem of her dress. Andrew and I have been looking at private schools. I nodded, cautious. Nothing crazy, she continued. But the one in Castle Pines has amazing STEM programs, robotics, foreign languages, behavioral science, and it starts at kindergarten. That sounds promising, I said. What's the tuition? She waved a hand. About $40,000 a year, not including extracurriculars, of course. I blinked. That's considerable. She smiled like I'd said something quaint. We're thinking, she went on, of formalizing some support. You've been generous, and we appreciate it. But if we had something more structured, predictable, we could plan better. Make decisions faster. I tilted my head. What do you mean by structured? Camille took a sip of her tea. Then she said it, $10,000 a month. I didn't speak. She looked at me calm as ever. It would cover tuition, enrichment, summer travel, some wardrobe. I'd still take care of the basics, snacks, daily expenses. This would just ensure Leo never has to feel limited. I set my teacup down gently. Camille. That's $120,000 a year. I know, she said as if I'd complimented her math. But with your retirement funds, the property you own, and your stocks, it's actually a very modest percentage. We've already reviewed it. Andrew and I, we looked over your financials. You left your Vanguard account open on the desktop last time you visited. Something cold slid into my spine. You looked through my retirement account. It wasn't intentional, she said quickly. But once we saw it, we realized how much you've built. It's admirable. And frankly, Leo deserves to benefit from that stability. I stood up. I think I should be going, I said. Camille didn't move. I hope you'll consider the offer. It's not a demand, just a proposal for Leo's future. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, I saw not a mother, not a wife, but a strategist. Calculating, unbothered by lines she'd crossed because she'd already decided they didn't apply to her. I'll think about it, I said, but I already knew the answer. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with the envelope of printed statements, the ones I'd been too polite to bring up, too afraid to acknowledge. I'd highlighted the totals, annotated the questionable charges. On the top page, I wrote in clean blue ink, "This is not what I agreed to. This is not who I am." The next morning, I called Andrew. "We need to talk," I said. He hesitated. "Is this about the school thing?" "No," I replied. "It's about everything." We met at a small cafe halfway between my place and his neutral ground. He wore a baseball cap, pulled low, like he didn't want to be recognized. I brought the folder. "I want to be clear," I began. "This isn't about Leo. This is about respect, boundaries, and what happens when you pretend someone's generosity is your entitlement." Andrew looked down. Camille didn't mean to overstep. She didn't overstep Andrew. She crossed. I slid the folder toward him. He didn't open it. I asked for this to be about Leo, not brunches, not hair appointments, not $300 at Saks for a handbag she needed for a fundraiser. He winced. "I know. Did you know about the $10,000 ask?" He looked up slowly. "She mentioned it. I didn't realize she'd actually said it to you." "She did," I said. "She had the audacity to treat my life savings like a shared family bank account, like I was just the quiet funder of her lifestyle." Andrew rubbed his temples. "She's under pressure." "So am I." I cut in. "I may not say it, but that doesn't mean it's not true. I've cut corners for years to stay afloat. I reuse tea bags. I fix appliances with YouTube tutorials. I haven't had a real vacation since your father died. But I never complained because I believed I was building something that mattered." His eyes softened. "You did? Then why does it feel like I've been reduced to a card in someone else's wallet?" He had no answer. I leaned forward. "I'm not here to make a scene. I'm not here to shame you. I just want you to understand that my silence was never consent. It was trust. And it's been broken." Andrew swallowed hard. "So what happens now?" I stood. "I'll be removing Camille as an authorized user, effective today. And I'm changing my passwords. From now on, if Leo needs something, he can ask me directly. I will always show up for him, but not through her." He nodded slowly. "Okay. I get it." As I walked away, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. The bank call took 8 minutes. A polite woman named Gina walked me through the process. I removed Camille as an authorized user, changed my login credentials, ordered a new card just in case. When she asked if I'd like a fraud alert set up, I paused, then said yes. It wasn't fraud, but it had felt like it. 2 days later, I received a text from Camille. "There's an issue with the card. It's declining. I'm at the pediatric dentist with Leo. Can you fix this?" I didn't answer right away. 10 minutes later, another one. This is really inconvenient. I had a whole morning planned, Evelyn. I finally replied, "Please use your own card going forward. This one is no longer active under your name." She didn't text back. But that evening, the knock came. I opened the door to find Camille standing on my porch, arms crossed, face like steel. "You cut me off," she said. I stayed quiet. "In front of a receptionist," she added. "In front of other parents." It wasn't about making a scene, I said. It was about making a decision. She stepped inside without being asked. "Do you know how that made me look? I'm more concerned with how it made me feel," I said softly. "For months, I've watched you spend behind my back. I've read statements like they were fiction, and I've smiled through it because I thought keeping peace was the same as keeping family." She scoffed. "So you humiliate me." "No," I said, still calm. "You did that to yourself the moment you mistook access for ownership?" Camille's mouth tightened. "Andrew's upset. I'm sure he is. Boundaries have a way of doing that. You're punishing Leo. That landed like a slap." "Don't you dare," I said. "Don't you dare drag that child into this to justify your spending habits. I've never said no to Leo. But I won't keep saying yes to you when what you want isn't support, it's control." Camille looked stunned for a moment, like she hadn't expected the steel in my voice. I walked to the entry table, picked up a small envelope, and handed it to her. "What's this A check? For Leo's school deposit? Paid directly to the institution. You can mail it or I can." She looked at it, then at me. "You think this makes you the better woman?" "No," I said. "It makes me the woman who finally said no." She left without another word. The door clicked shut behind her. I didn't lock it, I didn't have to. That door wasn't going to be opened the same way again. Leo's next birthday came 2 months later. The invitation arrived in the mail, hand-addressed in Andrew's handwriting. Thick cardstock, gold leaf edges. A dinosaur again, this time dressed like an astronaut. The return address wasn't their home, it was the venue. A country club. Inside a note in smaller script. "We'd love for you to be there. Leo misses you." It wasn't signed by Camille. I sat with it for a day, then 2. I thought about how last year I'd arrived with a homemade cake, wearing a blouse I'd saved for. How I stood near the lemonade unseen. I thought about the birthday Camille had thrown, not for Leo, but for her version of motherhood. Curated, photographed, selective. And then I thought about Leo, the boy who once curled up on my lap with a plastic T-Rex and whispered, "You smell like warm bread." I wanted to see him. God, I did. But not like this. Not as a prop. Not as a silent wallet in a quiet corner. So I didn't go. I sent a card instead, in my own handwriting, on plain linen paper. "To the bravest explorer I know, may your adventures always be yours." Inside the envelope, a certificate for a year-long family pass to the Natural History Museum. No strings, no flash. That morning, I baked myself a small cake. Just a boxed mix. I lit a candle. I whispered happy birthday to the air and then blew it out slow and steady. By noon, the first call came. Andrew. "Hey, Mom. We missed you." "I know. Leo kept looking for you. He was asking if you were stuck in traffic." My throat tightened. "Tell him I'm okay." There was a pause. "Camille's mother asked where you were." "Camille just said, she's not part of this anymore." That stung more than I expected. But it wasn't news. "I'm sorry," Andrew added. "You don't have to be," I said. "Not anymore." A few hours later, Leo left a voicemail. A giggle. "Grandma, I saw dinosaur bones. Real ones. Thank you, thank you, thank you." Mommy said, "I can take my friend Julian next time." I played it 3 times. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel erased. I didn't need a chair at the party. I had my place now, not handed to me, not begged for. Chosen. And that was enough. It had been on my to-do list for years, but I finally updated my living will the following Tuesday. Not because I was angry, I wasn't. Not anymore. I was just clear. For the first time in a long time, I knew who I was to myself. The lawyer's office was in a modest building downtown. Warm light, quiet clock on the wall. A paralegal walked me through everything: healthcare, proxy, power of attorney, final directives. Then came the part about assets. "Who do you want listed as beneficiaries?" she asked gently. I didn't answer right away. I looked out the window at the slow-moving traffic, the people with places to be. So many versions of love rushing somewhere. "I'd like to create a trust," I said at last. "For my grandson, Leo." She smiled. "Of course. Percentage or flat allocation?" "Half my estate," I said. "Managed until he's 25. Access earlier only for education, health, or if he starts something on his own, a business, a cause. Something that reflects his own character, not his parents'." The paralegal looked up. "You want that in writing?" "Yes," I said. "Especially that part. And the remainder. The other half. To the Adult Literacy Foundation. Under my maiden name." She paused, then nodded, typing steadily. I imagined Camille finding that out one day, reading it, and realizing she'd built a life around someone she never bothered to see. The appointment ended without ceremony. I took the elevator down slow and steady like my breath. That night, I set a letter on my desk. It was short. 1 page, folded twice. "Dear Leo, if one day you wonder why I wasn't always there, know that I never stopped wanting to be. I just had to choose a version of myself that wasn't quieted by someone else's noise. I hope by the time you read this, you've grown into someone brave enough to choose his own voice too. You were never the reason I stepped back. You were the reason I stayed standing. Love, Grandma Evelyn." I sealed the envelope and tucked it into the back of the trust folder. In the morning, I watered my succulents. Called Ruth from the library, signed up for a ceramics class at the rec center. The world hadn't changed, but I had. No press release, no scene, just the steady private power of someone who had been used and decided not to be anymore. Let them say what they will. Let Camille spin her stories. This time the story ends in my own handwriting. And this time, it won't be erased.